Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're just going to start our next unit, which is the human body. We start with the human body. We really just kind of do an overview of all the major systems of the body and talk just a little bit about homeostasis, which is maintaining balance in the body. So we'll start with homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is just the process of maintaining some sense of balance in the body. Usually we associate homeostasis with this concept of a negative feedback system. Negative doesn't mean bad here. Negative just means that the system works against its own movements. So what we mean by that is if the system were to increase to the right, there's mechanisms built in to start to push that system back to the left. And if the system were to move to the left, there are mechanisms built in to move the systems back to the right. So what happens with this is you start to maintain a balance. We get this sense of equilibrium. We've mentioned this before. In biology, we don't really have static equilibrium. It's always a dynamic equilibrium. Right? We're trying to maintain equilibrium, but it doesn't just stop. It's always shifting around what that equilibrium point is. So homeostasis is really just the overall our body trying to maintain this steady internal state. And some things, there's a lot of things that we can correlate to homeostasis, but some key ones would be body temperature, blood pH, and blood sugar levels, which is glucose concentration. So the classic example of a negative feedback system in our house would be a thermostat, right? It works as a negative feedback system. So if you go to the wall in your house, you might have a thermostat, you might have it set for 70 degrees. And what that is, it's the set point. It's the equilibrium point that you're setting for your house for temperature. Now, your house isn't always 70 degrees all the time. It works on a negative feedback system. It's a dynamic system. So if you had set at 70 degrees, right, for your heating system, and the temperature rises because the heat's on, it rises just a little bit above 70 degrees, what's going to happen to that system is it's going to turn the system off. So you can kind of see this here. So here's our set point. We're going to call it 70 degrees because we're working with Fahrenheit, not Celsius. And what happens is as that temperature gets above 70 degrees, there's going to be a mechanism to turn your heating system off. Now, once that happens, your house is no longer going to heat up. It's going to start decreasing in temperature. Slowly decrease in temperature. And once that temperature gets below 70 degrees, the heating system is going to turn back on. So you can really kind of see this dynamic equilibrium action going on. Now, our bodies do this all the time, right? We do this with our temperature, right? There are a lot of different things with constriction and muscle movement, things like that. But, on a large scale, you can look at our bodies is if we get too hot, we start to sweat. Sweating puts water on the surface of your skin. That water evaporates, and evaporation is a cooling process. In order for water to evaporate, right, it needs to draw heat to change from its liquid state to its water vapor, its gaseous state. So what happens when you get too hot is you sweat, you put that moisture on your skin, your blood vessels will dilate to let the blood get closer to the surface of your skin, and the water will kind of draw heat out of your blood, causing that water to evaporate, lowering your internal body temperature. In the opposite direction, if you get too cold, right, your body will start to shiver. You'll have vasoconstriction, where all your blood vessels will start to constrict, really trying to push blood into your core, because it's okay if your fingers get cold, but we don't want your heart and your vital organs to get cold. So it pushes your blood into the core. And the other thing that can happen is you can start to shiver. Large muscles start to move. Shivering is really the process of, muscle movement, also increasing rates of cellular respiration to give the energy for those muscles to move, right? Which in return has a byproduct of heat being released in that process. Blood pressure is also kind of regulated that way. Your heart rate is regulated with this as well, maintaining carbon dioxide levels, oxygen levels in your system. Another key one, though, is glucose concentration, which you can see here. Glucose concentration is regulating blood sugar levels. So we can kind of think that this is where insulin comes in. And somebody who's diabetic has an issue with regulating this. They might get insulin injections or other types of treatments. So with this is a classic example of a negative feedback system. The players in this, the major player of this that kind of creates the chemicals, the hormones that regulate your blood sugar is your pancreas. So you kind of see your pancreas right here. And your pancreas isn't going to just create one hormone, which is insulin. It actually creates two. It creates insulin, and also, so you can kind of see insulin secreting cells is going to secrete insulin. But other parts of your pancreas also releases this other hormone known as glucagon. Okay, so how this works is you need a certain amount of sugar in your blood. We call that blood sugar levels. If there's too much sugar in your blood, there could be major complications there. If there's not enough sugar in your blood, there could be major complications there. We need to keep this balance, keep homeostasis with your blood sugar levels. Okay, so let's kind of start with this. Let's say we're at our baseline and you ate a candy bar, right? So a candy bar is going to increase your blood sugar levels because you just put a bunch of sugar into your system. Once that happens, your blood sugar levels are going to rise a little bit. And what your body wants to do in order to lower your blood sugar levels is we want to get the sugar out of your bloodstream and get it into the tissues of your body, into muscles, things like that. So what happens is when your blood sugar levels rise, your pancreas is going to be alerted. It's going to react to that. It's going to secrete this hormone called insulin into your bloodstream. Insulin causes glucose uptake. So insulin is a hormone that will target cells in your body, tissues in your body, and tells those tissues to absorb glucose out of your blood. So our blood sugar level has spiked because we just ate a candy bar. Our body responds by the pancreas secreting insulin, right? And insulin causes your tissues to absorb the glucose out of your bloodstream. Hence, what it's going to do is going to lower your blood sugar levels. Okay. Now, you haven't eaten for a while, you've been active, right? You feel kind of famished, right? Your blood sugar levels could actually drop a lot, right? So if your blood sugar levels get too low, we need to regulate, we need to get it back up. And what happens is that pancreas, again, is going to secrete a different hormone, and this hormone is called glucagon. We have to backtrack just for a second here. So we know glucose is a monosaccharide. It's our energy source in our body, right? Just like carbohydrates. But when you have excess glucose in your system, we can store it in this polysaccharide known as glycogen. You remember that back from chapter 2. Glycogen is a polysaccharide. It's kind of like animal starch. It's how we store our extra sugar, our extra glucose. And we store that glycogen in your liver. So back to our feedback mechanism here. What happens is your blood sugar levels are too low. So therefore your pancreas is alerted and it causes it to secrete glucagon. Well, glucagon targets your liver and causes the breakdown of glycogen. Again, glycogen is a polysaccharide of just a bunch of glucoses put together. So when glucagon is released, it targets your liver and causes the breakdown of glycogen, which in turn releases glucose into your bloodstream. Hence, it helps to raise your blood sugar levels. We'll talk more about this when we talk about liver and we talk about your endocrine system later on, which is dealing with hormones. But that's kind of a basic overview of a negative feedback system. Okay. Next thing with homeostasis is regulating just internal temperatures. There's different ways we can talk about this. You've heard like warm-blooded, cold-blooded. Those aren't really great terms, but those are kind of like the common terms we have. We can really break them into a couple categories. One, we have a regulator and we have a conformer. So a regulator uses internal control mechanisms to moderate internal temperature. We are regulators. That would be like a warm-blooded terminology. We are regulators. Our bodies work hard to kind of maintain a stable internal temperature. Our internal temperature is 98.6 degrees, just about. So with that, no matter the environment, a regulator is really working hard to maintain its body temperature. And interesting thing about that is if you think about activity, right? So this x-axis is temperature. The y-axis is body temperature. And you can see this river otter here, a mammal like us. You can see that it's maintaining its stable internal temperature. Well, if you just think about activity, if the temperature were to decrease to become very cold, what do you think happens to metabolic activity in this river otter's system? Well, it has to go up. right? In a cold environment, because this river otter is trying to maintain a stable internal temperature, that's where metabolism has to start increasing because it has to start putting out more heat to kind of maintain that body temperature. That's where the shivering aspect comes in. Shivering is an increase in metabolic activity. All right, so there's our regulator, kind of maintaining our internal environment. Here's our conformer, right? So fish are good examples of this. Where their body temperature is just going to mirror whatever the temperature of their environment is. And here it's going to be a little bit different, right? As the temperature starts to decrease in their environments, what's going to happen to their metabolic activity? Well, just like anything else, right? If I decrease temperature, chemical reactions, everything slows down. So therefore, you're going to get a decrease in metabolic activity in a conformer compared you would get an increase in metabolic activity with a regulator. Okay. So with that, we also have the terms endothermic and ectothermic. Endothermic generate heat internally. So that would be kind of like a regulator, right? A regulator. And then ectothermic are animals that help to maintain their heat externally. That would be a little bit more of a conformer, but these guys, also regulate their temperatures. They just do it with external environments. So with endothermic, increased metabolic activity, shivering, sweating helps to regulate their internal body temperatures. With an ectothermic, like lizards, they really maintain or regulate their body temperature with their behavior. If you think of an alligator, right? Alligators are ectothermic. When temperatures are extremely hot, where are you going to find the alligators? Not sunbathing. They're going to be in the water. Water tends to be cooler, right? So they're going to be in their water, helping to cool down their body temperatures. When they are very cold, what are they going to do? They're going to lay out in the sun like this little lizard right here, and that's going to help to increase their internal temperature. So they're really using the environment to regulate their body temperatures. Okay, so the last quick thing here is just a very brief overview of the systems of the body. Sorry, forget that. We're going to just talk about 4 tissue types before we go into systems of the body. So when we look at the human body, there's really 4 major tissue types that make up our structure. But we have epithelial tissue, which is skin tissue. You can think of the skin outside your body, also the skin that lines your digestive tract. All the epithelial tissue that makes up a lot of your internal organs inside as well. We have connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, cartilage. Also connective tissue is fat, like adipose tissue, are all connective tissues. So here, connective tissues are really what helps to kind of connect bones together. That would be a ligament. Also to allow padding or some type of allows for this movement between bones. So some type of smooth surface, which is cartilage, and then also connections between muscles and bones. So if you kind of reach down to the top of your heel, you can feel that Achilles tendon right there. That is the connection between your calf muscle and your foot. That really helps to kind of connect that muscle to allow that muscle to move the bone structure of your foot. We have nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is basically brain tissue, right? Nerves. So you have your central nervous system, which is your brain spinal cord. You have peripheral nervous system, where all the nerves that radiate from there. And then the last major tissue type is muscle tissue. So muscle tissue, there's 3 major types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Skeletal is like the muscles that you can move. So if you think of your bicep or your hamstrings, any muscle that you have like voluntary control that you can move, those are all skeletal muscles. Smooth muscles, you don't really have voluntary control over. So smooth muscles are muscles that really kind of line your digestive tract or that surround your vascular system. So surrounds capillaries. So you can't dilate your capillaries, right? You can't constrict your capillaries, on your own, right? It's just kind of done with this involuntary action. So that's smooth muscle. In terms of digestion, like you could swallow, that's kind of part skeletal, but once you swallow food, you don't have the ability to move food through your digestive tract on your own, right? It's more of this involuntary process. So all that's really controlled by smooth muscle. And cardiac muscle, obviously heart, right? That's the muscle that makes up your heart. You can kind of see just some quick images of theirs, but we're not going to focus too much on images in this section. All right. So when we go into this unit, right, there's 11 major systems of the body. 12 kind of, you can break a couple up here. Nervous system, obviously, that's your brain, spinal cord, all of your nerves. It's a major regulatory system of our body. The integumentary system is basically our skin. It's a complex system, but we're really not going to go too much into our integumentary system. Skeletal system, obviously, your skeleton. Protection, key for protection, key for movement, things like that. We're not going to go too much into skeletal. Muscular system, obviously your muscles allow for movement, smooth muscle, skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle. We'll go a little bit into that, but nothing too crazy. The systems we're really going to spend some time with. We're really going to go into the nervous system, the first one here. We will talk about the circulatory system. Circulatory system is your heart, your arteries, your veins, your capillaries, where it helps to circulate blood around the body, bring nutrients, get rid of waste material, and so forth. Your respiratory system really kind of coincides with your circulatory system. Respiratory system would be your lungs, right? Helps to allow for gas exchange, right? Bringing in of oxygen, release of carbon dioxide. We're going to go into reproduction development, which we'll talk about later. The excretory system is really part of excreting waste materials from your body. So the excretory system has a couple of key components, like your lungs excrete carbon dioxide. Your skin is part of your excretory system because you're excreting water, you're excreting sugars, and not sugars, but salts and other waste material can actually be excreted out of your skin. But the major part of our excretory system is going to be our kidneys. The endocrine system of all these is probably the one you don't know as much about, but it's the other major regulatory system of our body. So the endocrine system is where hormones come into play. So you know hormones, right? We have like human growth hormone and epinephrine, right? Norepinephrine, which are both kind of the adrenaline. You have glucagon and insulin, which we just spoke about. Those are all part of the endocrine system. So where our nervous system is a real fine, immediate control of your body, the endocrine system, this is oversimplified, but the endocrine system is kind of more large scale regulation of your body. And hormones play a role there. The last ones we'll go into are really the immune system, right? So your white blood cells and the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system it runs along with the immune system and your circulatory system. So I kind of like to think of the lymphatic system. It's where we store a lot of our immune cells, our white blood cells. It's also kind of like a gutter system of our body, right? If we're trying to get rid of nasty pathogens, we don't want to just put it directly into our blood. So the lymphatic system helps to kind of clean things up and to get pathogens kind of broken down to be excreted from the body. So that's just a quick introduction. So we'll start going into the body systems. We're going to go into digestive system first, which we'll do next class. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you.